Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Akash, for the virtual mic handover. I will be moderating the session on Biotech Industries. And also, I would like to really thank the Bio NIT work, your team. You guys are amazing. This is awesome. I never thought when I was studying in NIT that Warangal will actually have this huge alumni event, but I'm super excited. I'm already so enthusiastic about all of our speakers. So our speakers for today, for the Biotech Industry sessions, are some really cool people, and I can't wait to talk to them to find out exactly their career pathways. Our first speaker is Elika Garg. She graduated from NIT Warangal in 2012, and she's currently employed as the chief informatician, bioinformatist. That's the word at Wellowise. And with that, I'm gonna ask Elika to take on the mic and pronounce bioinformatician better. Thank you.
Oh, no, that's it. Yeah, bioinformatician. So, all right. Hi, guys. Okay. So I do have like both sets of experience in that I did my master's from Canada. I went to McGill University, and now I'm in India in a startup working here. So, okay, let me first start with my NITW experience in internship. So my first internship was in a pharma company in my second year, which I kind of don't remember much of because I didn't really do much there. So for my third year, everybody was applying for DAD and my tax and, trying to get internships in better academic universities and institutes. So I did that too. And I got my tax results. So I was excited about that. But I also kind of had with DAD, we had to kind of find a professor on our own, and DAD was like separate from them, but they would be the ones funding us. So I actually got a professor in Germany who I talked to, and he agreed to take me on. But then I got the MyDex thing. So, and DAD's results were not in yet. So I had to pick which one. So I ended up picking MyDex because I know Akanksha said that she didn't want a structured thing, but I did. So I was like, oh yeah, MyDex works well for me. They will pick a house for me. They're gonna tell me how to, be in it was a bit of anxiety issue too, because first time going abroad alone, it can become too much. So I was glad that my tax was willing to do the heavy lifting for interns. So I took that, and actually the German professor did not like that I picked my tax. So I had to say no to him. And yeah, I pulled out my application from that, so I don't know if I would have gotten in with that. So yeah, that was the internship, getting into the internship. And with MyDex, we had to kind of, they had a few labs that we had to pick from. And I did that based on the project, not the city, which in hindsight was not the good decision because I picked Saskatoon, which is really in the middle of nowhere in Canada. so yeah, but then it kind of told me that, okay, that is not where I want to be for my master's. So that helped in that sense. But like the pace wise is in my experience wise, it was good. My professor, he encouraged me to try different things. Like there was I saw a mouse getting dissected. I saw pigs getting tagged on their ears. I got a tour of their very high profile uh, vaccine center, which was under construction, and they were giving tours. So I got to do that. And there was a conference that he urged me to go to in Manitoba, so I got to do that too. So it was nice in that, I got to see all these different things and experience them. But my takeaway from the internship was that I do want to come back to Canada, one, and I don't want to go back to Saskatoon. I want to be in either Vancouver or on the East Coast, not in the middle, somewhere on the coast side. So those were my two takeaways. And it did definitely help to have that professor in my referral list for my graduate programs as well. So that was good. And yeah, I did like, yes. So after that, let's see. Um, okay. Yeah, I would say that for internship, yeah, it's a good opportunity to explore different things. So use that for that, and not to don't worry about what you end up doing, because yeah, honestly, it's the people in the lab, they would also not not have enough time to show you everything. It's up to you to ask them and just look around a bit. All right, next. uh okay, after NIT. All right. So because of this, like I said, that I kind of knew that I wanted to come back to Canada for my master's, but I applied everywhere. As in, I applied in Europe as well. Um, in Canada, I I also applied for. I gave the I took the CAT exam and actually did get interview calls from IIMs. So that was very unexpected for me. And but I gave it a shot. Like, I went to attend the interviews. My Bangalore interview was an oddball. It was very weird. So that one, I just kind of ended up having fun with that interview. I knew that okay, I'm not getting in here. So, so that was that. But then I had the indoor interview, which actually I did qualify. I cleared that. So I had the opportunity to join IIM Indore. So it was after that, it was like, okay, and I got into McGill University as well. So I kind of preferred McGill. But there was obviously a little bit of societal pressure in terms that, getting into a good MBA school, B school. And so your parents would kind of um, try to try to send you there. So I had to stick to my ground that no, I want to do masters. I want to go to McGill instead. And I also had an offer from EMEA in Europe, but I had already decided on McGill, so I stuck to that. At McGill, I went for this program, Human Genetics, and the good thing was that it was fully paid. It was funded 100%. So I like that part. And uh, and human genetics is so vast. So in there, we had to kind of find a professor for the project that we would do work with. And all the professors that I sent in my applications to, so I had already got it into the department, but I still had to find the professor. Right? So all the professors that I sent in my applications to, nobody responded to me first. Uh, Instead, another professor whom I hadn't considered because he was more of a statistician, and that wasn't kind of the, what I was looking for at that point. Um, and he picked me, which ended up being good because I liked working with him. And I was co-supervised. The project that they designed for me was like half of it was wet lab, and then I had to analyze the data myself. So it was bioinformatics plus the wet lab part. So it was interesting, and I got to see both sides of things and work with two labs simultaneously. Of course, it had cons that you have to juggle both things, and two supervisors sometimes they can clash. When you're writing something, one would say, "Oh, I'll go with this thing," the other would say, "No, no, no, go with the other thing." So that would happen. And but all in all, it was a good experience. And after that, I worked in McGill in another lab for a while in neuroscience, where I actually got into bioinformatics more with genetics data and methylation data, and that was a very enriching experience. That I got to work with so many collaborators, and I'm still an author, a co-author on all the publications because I was working with data of so many different projects, So that was good. Um, about the yeah, then I ran into an immigration issue, as others have mentioned. So in Canada, once you have studied on study permits, you can apply for a 3 year. It's maximum 3 year. It depends. It can be less. Um, for a free open work permit. It's not free. It's open work permit, as in you don't have to be tied to an employer. You can work anywhere you like, and if you don't find employment, it's perfectly fine. They give you 3 years. Do whatever you want. You can work anywhere. So I worked on that work permit, but then when it was expiring, I had applied for a new kind of work permit, but there was some problem in the application and it got rejected. So I had to, pack up my life of 7 years and move back to India, which was very stressful. But yeah, had to be done. So I came back, and from here I applied for permanent residency because I had the points, with the point system, I had those things ready, because of my Canadian experience to do that. So I did that, and I got my PR. And because of COVID, I got delayed, but I hope to be back soon. So, since I was coming to India, then I started looking, okay, what am I going to do here? And I just found this company, Wise. So start a genetic startup, and I just went to talk to them. They were really nice people, so I ended up working with them. It was like not supposed to be that long, but it ended up being that long. So this is I'm the chief bioinformatician. So because it's a startup, I had to build everything from scratch. And once we get the data, what happens to it? Like there's QC, there's everything. Like how do you go from the raw data to the final product that the customer will see?
Right.
The entire chain of it, and also like designing the product that the customer would see. That's also very important. Like you have to, like, what level of detail do you give to them that they are able to understand and work with it. So it's been a very nice experience working here. um and Right, so this is a startup, so the time commitment has been variable. Of course, with COVID, it became even more variable.
Yeah, I can imagine.
um, and okay, so the potential next positions, right? Yeah, so I'm looking for work in Canada now. Let's see.
Yeah, I think I should probably mention that we're open to questions. So if anyone's interested, you can send it in the chat, and we can also, you can also ask more questions to Elika during our discussion.
I did have some
Elika,
questions here. Should I answer those first?
I think no. I think like just the general overview that you gave right now was amazing. We can get back to specifics and like see if anyone has like. I'm sure the audience wants to know a lot more specific stuff than this.
Okay.
But that was a very interesting, journey. I'm really glad you mentioned about the immigration issues and stuff, because I'm also facing that on a certain level, and I totally,
Yeah.
it's very relatable.
Yeah.
But apart from that, I think we should also listen to the other speakers and let's see what they've got to offer. So our next speaker is Shivani Malapati. Shivani was a graduate of NIT Warangal Biotech in 2015. Currently, Shivani works as a process development engineer at Illumina. So let's get Shivani on our call.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. The
Awesome.
floor, the mic, it's all yours.
So, hi everyone. Like Deepshika mentioned, I graduated from NIT in 2015. I learned a lot in my BTech as compared to my master's, I would say, especially from my internship experiences. After my second year, I got an internship at IIT Delhi. That project focused on bioinformatics side. It was not related to lab work, which is when I realized I enjoyed lab work more. So in my third year, when I started applying for internships, that my tax Corona, I luckily got Corona Scholars Program, and that's when I worked at IU Bloomington for summer of 2014. It was a completely different experience, especially the practical experience or lab work, hands-on lab work we get to do was much more there. What we actually were taught at NIT in practice, in theory, was implemented in practice, like molecular cloning, um, cell proliferation, etc. So I really enjoyed that, and that's when I thought it would be nice to go for masters, maybe at IU or any other university. So I came back, I graduated in 2015 May, but my parents were not really keen on me pursuing masters. They thought I wasn't very serious about it, and also it was a very big financial commitment. So they wanted me to pursue civil services. So it took me a while to convince them, and also they kind of understood that I was serious about doing masters. So I applied for spring programs instead. And I got into UTD. I think I applied for NYU and UFL as well. But I got the admit for UTD first, and I just went for it. So I started my master's in 2016, January, and then right from the first semester, apart from the courses I was working on, I also volunteered to work at a lab. So that lab experience taught me a lot as well. So I was very confused about whether to go towards industry or towards academic research. But working there, there were a lot of PhD students and postdocs. So I kind of understood that I don't think I have the patience to pursue PhD. And like Rohit mentioned and Akanksha, it does take a lot of perseverance and also patience. I wanted instant results, so I went to industry. So after, I think before my graduation in summer, like a year into my master's, I applied for this internship, which was a summer internship at Illumina. And I got into that. So I flew to San Diego from Dallas for that internship that summer. And I had just one course left in my last semester, which was an online course. So I continued working after the internship ended at Illumina as a associate, quality control associate. So that kind of provided me like a stepping stone to get a permanent job after I graduated. I had already made connections within that team, and they really liked, I kind of gelled well with the team, and the team was really friendly as well. So they thought I would be a good fit to be a permanent employee. That's when I started working as quality associate. After 6 months into that role, I realized I enjoyed working on troubleshooting things and also investigating NCRs or transferring new assays, etc. So that's when I switched to my current role as process development engineer. A little background is that Illumina manufactures DNA sequencers and also consumables used for sequencing. My role is to troubleshoot the issues with manufacturing and testing. And also there are different assays. So my team transfers those assays to different Illumina sites, the testing for those assays, and also transfers new assays from R&D to sustaining. So it kind of have a very diverse job responsibilities, I would say, and I really enjoy that, working on multiple things at the same time, or having a diversification of tasks. So I that's when I decided I'm going to stick to this role for quite some time and not move anywhere. That's where I'm at right now.
Awesome. That's like a really interesting trajectory, because it's very rare to see people in core biotech finish off with a master's and move on to an industry and actually successfully find an industry job. So that's amazing, and it's like I think it gives a lot of hope for like a lot of students who are still in the university in NIT Warangal who could possibly follow the same path. I think that's great. Are there any questions for Shivani on the chat? I don't see any, but guys, feel free to ask any questions, and this is like a great opportunity to learn a lot more. Okay. Thank you, Shivani, for that talk. We can move on to the next speaker, and we can get back to you with more questions, in the discussion session. So our next speaker is Mani Kotipalli. Mani is a graduate of the 2013 batch, and he is a senior process engineer at Amgen. So do we have Mani on call? Yes, we do. Hi, Mani. Again, the floor is yours. Let us know how everything panned out.
Thanks, Deepshika. For me, it's nice to see a lot of familiar faces. Hello, everyone. First of all, I should apologize if you're probably hearing a sleepy voice or a sleepy face. It's 7 a.m. here on the East Coast, but frankly, I joined the Zoom call around like 3 a.m. here after a late night board game on a Friday night. And like, I just found it interesting, and I saw a lot of familiar faces and like my friends, my seniors, my juniors talking over. So I just decided to stay and like just continue with the meeting. So this is probably my 26th hour staying awake. So but I'll try to do a good job. I actually put up some little information that, I felt like it would be informative for folks on the call. So let me just share my screen. So I'll start off because a few of the questions that I received were, why did I even pick biotech, right? Like for me, biotech was actually a choice. I'll be very honest that I had actually opportunities to pick other branches. In fact, and I picked biotech and I got seriously ragged for actually doing that by all the seniors. Like, why did you do that? Like it was just looked down, like at least, from like a lot of the folks that I've met very early on at NIT Warangal. But retrospectively, I mean, I wouldn't have changed my decision. It was for a reason. I actually was very passionate about it. And I discussed this with my parents at the time when I had the opportunities to go into different sections. I felt this is something that I was interested in. They supported me. Nobody even like batted a lead. I was very clear with my objectives, and that really helped me. And I had a great time. Like 4 years, 2009 to 2013, I had a really great time. I met wonderful people who were like made friends for life, and it's a very interesting time. I worked like hard, like work smart to get to the point, but at the same time, I think it's probably the most fun part of my life. I mean, like, been 7 years since I graduated. I'm gonna say like the undergrad, like NIT Warangal part probably is the most fun part that I've had. But at every point, like I had very clear intentions. I wanted to pursue biotech as a career. I wanted to stick to the field, so it was very clear for me. So I was exploring opportunities every time. I was like always interacting with people. I think I've interacted with Rohit too a couple of times when he was on campus, like always trying to learn and understand what it is out there. But for me, the breaking point was um, actually the internship. Like especially after during my second year, I actually started looking at a lot of my seniors and like other people, and understood what does it take to want to actually get an internship. So for me, it was a very clear mind that I wanted to do an international internship. I mean, it could be like, like a repeated institute in India too, but like it was something that I wanted to give, my complete commitment towards. And I put in my complete effort. Like for my tax, there is that, there is Corona, multiple. I did apply to a lot of them. And at the time, I'm realizing, so it does take a big toll on like applying for these internships. You're applying and like you're just waiting for results, and I haven't been hearing. And one thing that I did was forget about all these internships. I'm just gonna cold email everyone. Like I did this. I think one of the presenters actually recommended that to Like just reach out to the professors. Like, you find them, find the emails, you find whatever they're doing interesting. They are not looking at, you coming and doing a breakthrough, like invention or something. All they're looking at is like curiosity, like the interest and like the fascination towards that. And I had an opportunity to like impress a professor in University of Heidelberg, and he was offering kind of like my accommodation and like few other parts, and I was like up for it. I'm gonna grab that. That is something I always wanted. And the very next day I heard that I got the MyTax internship. And MyTax internship, I think it's another level. The luxury is another level. The way how they treat you is another level. And I got into a really good University of British Columbia, Vancouver. I didn't even know what Vancouver was at the time. I was like Googling for the first time, trying to see what Vancouver is. It's an amazing place. Like, I've been to so many places in like US and Canada. Like, I still feel like Vancouver is probably my dream location. I had the opportunity to go there and I did my internship. It was a wonderful experience. I worked on diabetes type 2. At the time, we were looking at like what are the different triggers, and I was doing immunohistochemistry. It was a very amazing experience, and I that was where I basically developed my fascination towards like cell culturing and like like doing some core research and engineering aspect. But at the same time, I learned something very crucial in the internship, and which is probably deviates a little bit from few folks who we've heard from. I I understood that core research is something probably not for me, which was very important because until that point I was just focused at PhD, PhD, PhD. I'm gonna do PhD for my life. I know this is my path, but I understood that like in reality, research is probably not for me. The depth is something different. I enjoy the breadth of things. So that opened up something new. As when I came back, I started exploring like what can I do, like because I know like outside biotech is a really big like field. It's growing in India. It was growing, it is growing. Probably I don't know for how long it will still be growing, but like outside it is going at a much rapid pace. And I started exploring uh, graduate programs. At the time, I found a graduate program called Professional Science Masters programs. I'm sure like few of you all have heard it. And there are a lot of programs currently in US and across the board, like Keck. I think Texas A&M has it. The university that I went to, North Carolina State, a lot of these programs out. So the unique thing about these programs are they are very industry focused, meaning that you do the 2 years masters, you do not have a thesis. Rather than that, you do internships with the company. So the internships and like working with the company count towards as a thesis. I found that to be very exciting, and knowing the fact that research is not my thing, I did some additional research and I identified a lot of programs within US and Canada, and I applied for it. I'll be very frank, I applied to 10 universities at the time. I had like offers from like 8 different universities. It was challenging. For me, I always wanted to go back to Canada too, because that's the easiest decision for me and it just works in my favor. I know the team. And at the same time, I actually got an offer from one professor who was moving from University of British Columbia and setting up his own lab in of Saskatchewan, or like the one that Elika was mentioning earlier. And I just found that place to be ridiculous. Frankly, it was in the middle of a cold desert. He was willing to pay everything from end to end, but all he asked me is like, just come. Me and my wife are moving here, setting up a lab. I just found that to be a little scary, and I had other reasons to move to US. I had my family here, so I thought like this is a very, it'll be a good move. So I decided against. And how I picked the university was very unique too. So for me, Texas A&M was probably my dream company. Like again, like I think there's an impact from Rohit too on this, because we've seen him. Like I've seen like few other members, so I looked up to it, and it's also ranked really high. But the reason why I picked North Carolina State University was very interesting. So one of the things that I did, which was really helpful, was just reaching out to people like who are already there, who are already doing this. So I reached out to 3 to 4 people from every university who are currently doing the program, just asking them, what do you like about this? Is there anything that I should consider for not picking this university? Surprisingly, a lot of people who got back to me from TAMU from this specific program were unhappy, because the people who are going into this program, their end goal is to get a job, right? They're not going for a PhD, they're not going for other things. And the industry around TAMU at the time was probably not the best. Now there are other companies like Fujifilm, a lot of other companies which come around. But what happened around the North Carolina State University was the three people that I reached out to, they were just happy. Like their responses were genuinely happy. There is industry, and I understood, like, like they made this decision too because they had the opportunity to pick between multiple universities. So I thought that was a deal breaker for me, like in the sense that people within this university were very happy, and I was making a call and I went there. I did not have any funding at the time, but what I would like to say is, like, after the first year, I was a grader. I was making like money to cover my living expenses. But after, from the second year, I got a TA, which basically covered for my entire health insurance, and like it even helps to pay off some part of the loan. So this program was amazing. And after during the course of the 2 years, I worked with three companies: Biogen, Novozymes, and Syngenta. These are big players. If you look at it, they are different what do you call, like, fields as well. Biogen is very much into, like, biopharmaceutical company. Novozymes is like environmental sustainability. Syngenta is ag bio. So these programs makes you, like, gets you into these different fields so that you get an exposure of it. And that's my first entry into, like, what the industry is, what are the different departments, how do they, like, work together, and like, get to that end point. I think that gave me a good exposure, and that motivated me to, like, apply for internships within biomanufacturing. So that is when, like, after my first year, I interned at Novartis. I was very fortunate where my mentor, in spite of me having all the downstream experience, he said, Mani, like, this is not the thing. Let's put you on an upstream project. At the time, I was very hesitant, but retrospectively thinking, I think that's one of the biggest lessons learned. He put me in a very uncomfortable zone, which actually expanded my breadth, which was making a very big difference in my current role. Because the fact that you're having that upstream, downstream, like, little bit of experience in everything makes a very huge difference, especially later on in the industry. So I really enjoyed my internship at Novartis. I was basically culturing cells and stuff. And I got back, I had still had 1 year of my master's, and I decided to pivot to something called biomanufacturing program. So this is another really unique thing that my program allowed, is that um, it it had its own industry within. Uh, Sorry, I don't know. I'm seeing a lot of arrows, but I don't know if it's hacked. Um, so it has its own industry within the facility. It has its own GMP plant where you are learning courses by literally doing stuff within the GMP plant. So I thought that would be, like, pivotal in just setting myself for success right after my graduation. So I started taking a lot of courses, and the program was flexible for me to, like, accumulate a lot of courses. And as expected, I think that served me well. And my internship got converted to full time in Novartis. And then this Novartis facility was a flu vaccine manufacturing facility. So I joined there as a viral pilot plant engineer. They were doing some PPQ runs, which is like just before molecule getting commercialized. These are the runs you do to show process performance. And I was collecting the data. And one of the big things that I learned through that whole experience is statistics as a skill. I think that is gold, whether you're in PhD, whether you're going in industry, whether anywhere. I think biostatistics is a very sought out skill. So I just wanted to put it out there that if you're looking at some competencies, I think statistics as a skill is helpful in probably any field in general. And at the time, Novartis got sold. So they sold its vaccine business to GSK because of their restructuring, and their flu business got sold to Australian company. They were the market leaders in the Southern Hemisphere called BioCSL. And they are coming to the Northern Hemisphere in USA for the first time. So they did not understand anything about these immigration policies. Again, like, it all goes back, everyone talking about immigration. So it was a little tricky thing. So I decided to not get caught in the transition between the companies. And then I jumped to another company called KBI Biopharma. So probably not many people heard about this, but probably this is the best thing that happened to me, because it's a startup. It's kind of a startup kind of a company. It's a CDMO. To folks who do not know what a CDMO, it's a contract development manufacturing organization, meaning that they do not have their product on their own. They basically take all these big companies and solve their problems. So they basically are providing services. Like, for example, Novartis can go to them and say that, okay, all right, I'm having this technical difficulty. Can you resolve this? Or, like, make this tox material for us. So this is a role which I had to slog literally. I was like the 0th employee of their pilot plant. I was setting up the plant. I was bringing in the equipment. I was like cleaning the floors to running the equipment to like everything. It was amazing that the exposure that I got there was in a very short span of time was really good. So another lessons learned I wanted to share is very early on working in like, like a startup kind of an environment is just boost your career to another level. At the same time, when I was in that particular company, I also explored operational excellence, which was like a little outside my comfort zone. They had very constrained spaces and I saw a need for it. So I did my Six Sigma black belt certification and pursued few projects with them. And I found that to be, very add-on skill on my LinkedIn later. And after a certain point, I tried to move within the company. And again, like this always happens, right? Though I learned a lot from the company, there's always politics that happens around which prevents you from moving and stuff. So at the time I was looking for opportunities beyond, and Amgen had this wonderful role, which is kind of like an MSAT role, which stands for Manufacturing Sciences and Technology, where you're the liaison between the process development and manufacturing. So you have this process, somebody did all the research work, all the PhD folks, right? Smart people, and they put it into a process design. They give you a process and they make it into a bench scale. Now, my job is to take this bench scale process and make it into a million doses, right? Like a 2000 liter scale or 5000 liter scale. So that is where I come in, where I do the tech transfer between a small scale to a large scale. And not just that, because Amgen being a big company, the California side where I work is the headquarters. So a lot of these innovative molecules come out of that and they send it to different plants in like Puerto Rico, Ireland, and Singapore. So my job is basically to take this technology from one site and implement it in another site. This is an amazing role because it is a very cross-functional role where I work with quality, PD, project management involves a lot of like folks who probably do not report to you, but like you are bringing them all together to
Right.
get work done. So overall, it's been a journey. If you see, I mean, I've been 6, 7 years, 5 years, or 5.5 years. I've moved around quite a bit, and it's been a great experience. And I just want to like in my last probably 1 minute with the 4 top lessons learned that I learned. Understand what really excites you. I think that really worked wonders for me, because if I say that PhD was my thing and I stuck with it, probably I would be regretting, maybe, right? I'm not sure. The point that I understood that breadth is what I enjoy versus the depth was really helpful in putting myself in this path. And work hard and smart, I mean, not just everyone works hard, like I would give that, but like work smart, because that's what decides whether you're going to have a work-life balance or not, and being efficient in whatever you do. And third one is chase people, not titles and promotions, because that's always stays with you. You will grow in your career, not because of like applying for a role or something. It's the people that you trust in, or like the people who are behind you, who are going to pull you in through your career, because it's a very niche field. You'll be surprised that when I moved from East Coast to West Coast, and the first day I was on a cricket ground, a random person I met, he knew my previous boss in the other company. It's just a very niche field. So people are there everywhere. Whatever you do matters. So everywhere you go, leave a good trail. Or a bad trail is also gets remembered. It's a double-edged sword. And finally, like I mentioned, get out of your comfort zone. If you do not like some particular thing and you are in this every role, you're going to learn something. It's going to add to your skill set. It's okay not to have a plan. All I would say is like just keep trying hard and like work smart. And I think doing masters and getting an industry job, probably biomanufacturing, is one easier way. That's, let me put it that way.
Thanks a ton, Mani. That was a very, fascinating journey that you had with so many different organizations. I'm sure it's given you so much experience I can't even imagine. And with that, I would like to open the floor for the discussion with all three of our speakers. Is there anyone who would like to start with a question? I mean, I have one. Like, so off the bat, when I knew I was going to moderate this session, like I was thinking, in the previous, like one of the previous speakers, Akanksha had mentioned that, a PhD actually decreases your chances of finding a job later on, right? But I've also heard like this, the other side of these things where having a PhD qualifies you for certain jobs. Like there's a ceiling that you could potentially.
I was kidding.
Oh, okay.
It's
no,
just,
but it's actually a very, I've heard that so many times.
it takes very long, and by the time you finish PhD and postdoc, you have a lot of personal commitments. So like the previous speaker, like he had so many experiences, and all those things become very limited. You cannot move that often, you cannot change jobs that often, so it is a commitment. Definitely you are overqualified for most jobs after a PhD.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was getting at. Like you would be overqualified for most jobs, but what about these jobs? Like how did you know the kind of trade-offs that you'd make? And this is like a question for all three speakers.
For me, I'm looking for jobs in Canada right now, right? So I do see that a lot of the work that is interest to me does have a requirement for PhD. But on the other hand, like because of my experience, like I can go into non-biology related fields also, just focus on the data science part of it. And those jobs usually they would say, oh, a BTech is fine, or they don't even ask for a master's kind of degree. So yeah, there's a spectrum for sure. But what my PI had told me during my master's was that if you go for PhD, then the level of the salary that you get is going to be higher than if you just go with master's plus, even if you have some experience, maybe it will catch up, but that's what I was told.
Right, that's interesting.
Yeah, to be honest, I've seen this to be a very company specific thing. I mean, like of all the three companies I've seen, everybody had their own limitations. Like, for example, within a company, if you do not have a PhD, you cannot be a director. But I've seen like a company as big as Amgen, they did not have that. Like, for example, my current director doesn't even have a master's. So it sounds surprising, but there are certain people who are just genuinely smart. They just know stuff, right? And I think they just trust in their instincts. I've seen like few people like they're just, like just bachelors or with just masters have risen to that level. It also depends a lot on the company that like, whether this is a bar, this is a limitation. I'm seeing those barriers break a lot more right now. There is always like the basic qualifications. They would probably say PhD or like masters plus X years, bachelor's plus X years. Um, at the end of the day, if a person has the right skill set and like the right curiosity to learn and grow, I think that's all matters. Like PhD and all, it's amazing, it's great, but if there is the lack of curiosity, I think it doesn't matter even if he's probably worked in the top company at then.
Right. Those are really interesting takes. Is there anyone who wants to add on to this? Any other questions?
I just wanted to add on that, like resonating with Akanksha's thoughts on this is that, so doing a PhD kind of makes you eligible for like a certain set of jobs that like master students might not be, but then also does make you overqualified for a few jobs. I think that is where like we were kind of talking about, and also as what she mentioned, with PhD, you are kind of stuck with a field, whereas like Money had like so many experiences where he could shift easily in between different fields and all. So but kind of a way to handle that, using the analogy that Money was using, is also that while you're going in deep into a subject, also broaden your prospects. So that is where as I said, having like different components to your project, having a bioinformatics project, having another different some other thing. So while you're actually going deep into the field, also make yourself get yourself more skills, and then then you can be I think it will make you easier to apply for other jobs. I think eventually PhD comes down to the point of how good are you at designing an experiment, or how can you answer a question. There are multiple different ways of answering that question. So how can you design something to answer that question? And once that you have that answer, what do you do with that? That is what a PhD is essentially.
Awesome. Yeah. We actually have a question on chat. This is from Vatsal. Vatsal, do you want to speak out the question, because I can see you on camera, so maybe you could ask it.
Sure. Yeah. Hi guys. My question is mostly for Money. Hi, Mani. I don't know if you remember me, but
Hey,
we
what's up?
used to speak a lot back then. But I was just wondering because you were associated with Novartis and now with Amgen a lot. So do you know if they recruit, I mean, PhD graduates for basic science research? I know that they have these departments, but really it's not very clear what is the recruitment pathway that they choose for, those departments.
Yeah, I mean, definitely for research, I think PhD is like it's like a golden skill, I guess. Like for someone who's coming with a PhD, they are already coming at a higher level. But I would say again, like for there are definitely levels, right? I'm just to break it down, like if you they're like 1, 2, and 3 levels. The people who are coming into level one probably are bachelors with some experience or masters with no experience. They are like fresh grads. But people who are coming from PhDs, they always start off at a higher level. And I would
Is
say
that, I'm sorry, is that for like a basic science research department for these companies?
yeah,
Like,
yeah. Like each one of them, they either have their own or they basically have an affiliate to a certain universities that they have affiliates to. I've
yeah,
seen a lot of the companies are like now having affiliate to universities because that is one efficient path. But having said that, uh, especially the big pharmas, they actually have their own basic research where I think most of the people who are heavily involved are actually PhD graduates. And it's for a reason, right? Because they have the experience and like certain skill set.
thanks.
Anyone who wants to add on to that, wants to discuss it further? Yeah,
I
Rohit.
just wanted to add in that so what's the recruitment for those kind of jobs usually happens as in like when an industry has like a tie up with like a particular department. So most of the times what they do is they already are sponsoring some kind of research somewhere. So they usually recruit from those places. Or also what happens is they go to conferences within that field, and once they see people presenting or some, that is where they have that networking, and they know whom they can recruit. But those opportunities are not usually like advertised outside. It is a very internal process that happens.
Yeah, I guess that is what my question was. I mean, is it like a usual, pathway where it is advertised, you go for interview, or is it just basically networking where you just go?
Most of the times it happens internally, like with networking. Like networking definitely like amplifies your opportunities a lot.
Yeah, and unfortunately, in some of these big companies, even before the posting is selected, the person is already in people's mind. They actually open the posting because they have a person that they already have in the mind.
Mm,
So that's a
okay.
very common thing that happens too. I mean, with COVID, a lot of the things are changing. However, currently, with people moving, leaving, and a lot of them are being impacted. But I think, yeah, I agree with like what Rohit was saying that they affiliate themselves to conferences and recruit PhD folks.
Thanks, man.
Can I just say one more thing?
Uh,
If you
yeah,
want, if you want to go to industry, I'm not in industry, but in that one, location also matters, right? If you're, I feel like we were in Dallas and people wanted to go to industry, and there was just no industry there. So everyone was complaining that if they were in California, Boston, or Seattle, they would have so much better opportunities. So if you really know you want to go to industry, pick the right city. Don't, yeah, don't go to just the middle of nowhere.
yeah. So I think the no, don't go to the middle of nowhere is a repeating theme in our discussion today. Mani, there's also another question for you from Srilati. She's asking you, what exactly made you feel that you're not the right person for PhD? Um, Being a person totally curious about biotech, what qualifies a person for PhD?
Yeah, I think that's an amazing question. It's just going back to the days where I was like sitting in the meetings that during the internship, like where I was sitting in the meetings where they take a research paper and break it apart and like scrutinize it. There were moments I was dozing off, like which is scary, right? Like it's an opportunity that not many people get. And if I'm able to just doze off in those meetings, it's just I kind of felt ashamed. But having said that, there is an aspect of engineering to the internship where I was doing and I was working on, and electron microscopy where like you were doing histochromatograms and like setting up like principles for that. That is something that I really enjoyed. So the aspect that like just having conversations around like what are like the basic things a person would need, and also the time commitment to me, like I think someone brought that up. I think Shivani brought that up. Like I'm by nature, I'm not a very patient person. That is just understanding myself, right? Like I could change it, but like there's certain things that define you. That is something that I felt like it doesn't fit my nature as well, and it's very long. It's a long-term commitment also that you're looking at, and for me, it's more around like the short wins are something that are very important for me. So I think those are a few of the considerations at the time.
Yeah. We also have a question from Daksh. So Daksh, you can go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Thanks a lot for the session, people. Um I just had a generic question and a bit more specific one. So the generic question I'd go ahead with first. So let's say someone's moving from a non-biotech related industry to a biotech related industry. Do you think it's necessary to go through a master's, or can someone like directly transition from one industry to another? Um, mm. and the other question I like to ask Elika. So you have worked in data science related projects, I gather. So have you do you realize or have you ever come across data that are non-biotech, and then how do you see them? How do you see the difference between the two data? I mean, how does bio-related data differs from the other kinds?
So the
I'm sorry if
bio
it was all over the
data,
place.
no, it's okay.
Mm.
Okay, let me start with the first question. So I did have a colleague who was a computer science BTech graduate who was working in the lab with us, and he actually told them they did not have biology as a background, and they did not understand that. But all that was asked for them was their programming. It was okay for them to work with us in the lab. Of course, it would have helped if they did have some biology experience or understood it. But that's what the other colleagues were there for. So that worked out with them. So yeah, you can transition. Either way, you can go. For the second question, the biological data, it's uh, so so if you've heard of big data, we have that kind of data in biology a lot. So it can, the files can be in gigabytes or terabytes, even if you're looking at sequencing data. So those kind of things, you do need to learn about them, how to process them and what to do with them. It's not so much exploratory that on the other hand, the non-biology related data, for example, I work with survey data or questionnaire data. Because I worked with mental health data at one point. So we had all these questionnaires about depression and anxiety. So those were not really biological. It was like asking people, okay, how many times did you eat today? That kind of data. But at the end of the day, it was like that is easier to handle in that, first of all, it's not that big. And you're able to quickly get insights from it because there's not much you can ask of that data. So it's easier to handle. But then there's only so much you can do with it. Was that Did I answer your question?
Yeah, I guess that answers it well. Thanks. To the other speakers, if you wanna tackle the
Yeah,
question,
Laksh,
please
I
go
think to
ahead.
your first question, the
Yep.
short answer is no. I mean, it's not a requirement. I will give you an example as well. I've had like few colleagues that I personally recruited. They come from a water purification background, so they are chemical engineers by trade. But if you think about it, the unit operations, the science behind it is probably very similar, right? Like purification, you have like resins. It's probably a different science, but what they were looking at is like what kind of experience they had, whether they had the right GMP skill set. Like it again very depends on like what kind of a role they're going to. If they're going into manufacturing, they probably are looking for someone who knows the GMP and the GDP documentation and stuff. If they're looking for someone for process development, definitely having a degree is like a leverage, right? Like you need some leverage, especially you're moving from one field to another. Having a degree is basically a leverage to put yourself in a better spot. But if you ask the question as, is it a must? Probably not. Will it be challenging without it? Probably yes.
Got it.
Interesting. I
I
also
Thank-
see, is there, Shivani, do you want to answer this too?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so I agree with what Manish just said. I don't think a degree would be a must, especially if you're having a data science background or a computer science background. There are multiple roles which I work with cross-functionally, software engineers or data analysts on day-to-day basis. Um, they do have basic bachelor's degree in a non-bio area, but uh, they do work at a biotech company, so it's not really needed for you to have a degree, but I would say it would be an added bonus and very easy to get a role in a biotech company if you have the background.
Great. Thanks. Thanks, all three of you.
Awesome. I think there's another question from Moidul. So
Yeah. Can you guys hear me?
yes.
So yeah, as Sahitya described, there's a turning point which I also had in my bachelor's. So I'm a final student. I had an internship in which I applied machine learning concepts in drug discovery. So that's where I discovered I really like bioinformatics. So my question is a bit long, but bear with me, please. So I'd like to ask Elika that I plan to work in bioinformatics in the future, and I'm very keen on it. I am very interested in data science and biotech related stuff in general. So right now I got placed in Novartis as a business analyst. So, but my ultimate goal is to work in the industry, bioinformatics preferably. So will working for a year or two in the biotech industry, but not directly related to biotech, like the business analyst role that I have at Novartis. So will working there for a year or two hinder my chance of getting a master's degree or getting an admitted to a master's program? And what would you recommend I do? Should I like I want to try out corporate for a bit just to know what I like and what I don't like. But ultimately, I think I want to go into bioinformatics. So would you recommend working for a year or two or apply directly to masters? That's what I want to ask.
I don't think it'll hurt your chances to work in the business analytics sort of role at Novartis, because like Novartis is a biotech company, so that's plus. And also in business analytics, also you would be working with data of some kind, right? So you would pick up
Yes.
skills with your data science, with R, Python, Bash. So if you are already working on those things, that's a huge plus. Like going in my master's, I had to learn R from scratch there, because like I went directly from my BTech, right? And we didn't have programming experience that much at NITW. There was like one semester of C++ in the first year.
We have our
So yeah, and actually I discovered that I like doing that when I was learning art, so I stuck with it. And but for you, if you're going into it, I would say that picking up Python, if you have to only pick one language, then Python is a better language to start with, because most people work with Python, and that has been a hindrance for me, because I have been focused so much on R, and once you start using it, you get comfortable with it, and there's no need for me to go into the other to go and learn that other language. So for you, for people who are starting out, I would suggest Python would be a better choice. Yeah, and yeah, definitely for you, it's good. This role will be an added benefit to you for your master's application, I'm sure of it.
Thank you. Thank you.
So there's a question from Snehdeep. He asks, does it add points to do a job at the end of the VTech before a master's? So does it help to have corporate experience? So I think this follows on Moidul's questions.
I don't think it matters that much. I mean, there's people who go directly like I did, and so many others here. and I have friends who worked in industry for a bit before starting their graduate program. It might help people who are ambivalent about it. Like for us, we because we knew that we want to do this. This is what we wanted to do in our recent future. So it was an easy decision for us. But if you're ambivalent about it, if you want to see, how it is going into industry, yeah, you should try that first because there's more commitment in academia. you know.
Yeah, I think Elika nailed it. I 100% agree with that. The only thing that I want to add is that this is coming from a real example again, like one of my close friends. We graduated around the same time. He took a year and like worked in Dr. Reddy's and came back. Uh, Unfortunately, some of the companies here in US do not consider the Indian experience. They do not weigh the Indian experience the same way as they do. Because I sit on a few of the recruiting panels and I've seen these people who are coming with 3 years of Indian experience. It's very tough to weigh what does that mean, right? Like especially if a person who's coming worked in Wipro and they're coming to a biotech company now after doing masters, they do not know how to weigh, even doctorates for the matter of fact. So the weightage is different, but like Elika mentioned, if you're like still trying to make a decision, I think it definitely helps you to work for a bit, like have that complete clarity before making that big step. It's a big step, right? You're moving away from your home country, you're sacrificing a lot of things, and so it's a decision to be made.
Okay. I see a question from Danishta.
Yeah. First of all, thank you all of you for answering the question so candidly and for a great talk. My question is more general, as in like, I would like to know like how you guys went through your different roles in these different industries, because if you just do a general job search in all these different companies, you would end up finding that some things in the US you would need to be on the US soil and things like that. So how do you approach these companies in terms of getting a sponsorship for your visa and such things, because from these the career site, you basically don't get much information about the profile, but you can't even apply through to get filtered out of the application process just because you're not in the country. So yeah, I guess how would you like apply it for these different roles, or you just contact them to the HR, or how did you guys go about it?
I can add a little bit on it. So after I graduated, I had a brief period of time when I wasn't sure if I wanted to. I think I wasn't offered the role yet at Illumina, I think for a month, during which I used to apply to the jobs listed on LinkedIn. And the first question the recruiters used to ask was, would you need a H-1B sponsorship? So I think that would be a good start. And the first question any immigrant would ask if they are applying for a permanent role. So if you're not bringing up the question, the recruiters would themselves bring up the same question, and you'll have higher chances of a sponsorship if you're applying for, say, a medium to bigger sized companies. So initially, after you graduate, you'll have at least 1 to 3 years of time. So if you're joining a startup or a small size company which wouldn't offer you the visa sponsorship, you can always switch to another company, but just getting that experience would be a good starting point, I would say.
Okay.
I had a
Would
very...
anyone?
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Deepshika. You're saying something.
Yeah. Please go ahead.
I was saying I had a very interesting path. For me, like the easiest path is probably converting your internships, right? So if you already have your internships in hand, just convert it to full time. So for me, I felt like I did a really good job. It should convert to an internship, but it wasn't. Like I was just waiting and waiting for it. So the first job, it's not a luxury. You just apply. Like I applied probably like for 100, 150 persons. So I identified like maybe like 12, 20 companies, because first job, like you're not looking for options. Once you have an offer in hand, then you can be very picky and selective, at least especially with all the visa restrictions. Like that was the mindset. So once I had something in hand, then I was looking at like multiple options and then looking at what would set me up, like, what would give me the best exposure. And you'll be surprised, like all the three roles that I got, none of them I got through applications. I'll be very honest. I've applied 150, 450, whatever number, none of them I've got applications. Every single job I've got is through networking. It might be a very fancy word, but like you will probably understand it like once you're in the same place. Like people are the ones who are gonna push you. Like the first job that I got was like probably I went to like a career fair, I gave a resume, probably it got trashed, right? Then I met him at another career fair. I met him at another place. I met him at another conference. Until the point the person remembered my name. He had no other option but to take my resume, put it in someone's desk. And once your resume is in someone's desk, 99% job is done because your foot is already within the company, right? And if you're a genuinely capable person, you achieve that, the major goal. So I think was the critical part. The first step is the critical, and from once you build that network, from there on, there will be people who are going to support you, who are going to pull you, and you have some experience to back you up.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? I think there was one from Srilapi for Rohit. Considering the time span for PhD, is USA better over any other European country or UK? And also, how likely people would consider PhD in Europe after masters in US? I think the second part applies to Simran a lot. I think she'd like to add on to it. I can see her bouncing
Yeah,
in the
I was
little
going to
chat.
say I'll let Simran answer the second part, but I think the first one, again, there isn't really any way to compare like PhDs in different countries. I would say the one major difference that at least I have noticed is that USA it takes a little longer, so the stress isn't as in like there is still going to be stress, but then in Germany and other programs, I don't like if the folks from Germany are still around, they might answer that better. But it is more of a structured thing over there. So like where that within 3 or 4 years you need to be done, or like that is the amount of funding that you get. So that could, I think, be a differentiating factor. But apart from that, again, as I said, PhDs come down to the point where it is about you, your lab, your project. So it could be in US, it could be in UK, but you could be having totally different experiences. So.
I wanted to add to that so in Canada, the PhD and masters is similar to US. That my master's took 3 years, and the normal is 2 years for masters, and for PhD it's 5 to 7 years. Most people take 7 years, so that's kind of the average time. And because of those longer times, it might be a bias of some people, but they do kind of think that European masters and PhDs are done too soon. And for them, they would require some more experience to bring them on par with the North American people. But that could be just be the bias of a few people that I talked to on this.
Yeah, and I think I can take on the second part where you do. I did my master's in Germany, and then I came here as a prospective PhD student, and worked in a lab. But I realized that maybe USA, New York, and the work culture does not suit me, and I want to go back to Europe. But I think, as Rohit said, every PhD is a different experience and a different journey, and these are personal choices. For example, I have a bias for Europe because I did my student exchange there in Poland and masters in Germany, and I have an established social and professional network, so I'm just getting back to it. But I have known many people from the US who do their PhD in Europe for two reasons. One, you get to travel. Two, you finish earlier. So it's not I think it's not a big deal as long as you like the lab, you like the project, and everything works out for you and the person who's hiring you. I think it should be fine.
I just
Yeah.
wanted to add to that because I did my PhD in Germany. Regarding the duration, it can also, some people also take 5.5 years or longer. So it's really depending on the lab, the project. If you have funding, so sometimes there is pressure that you only have funding for 3 years, 3.5, depending on if you have third-party funding or if it's a stipend. But at the end of the day, I think what you learn, it always depends on what good supervisor you have, what kind of lab you're working in, and so I think at least in Europe, there is no bias, I would say. So they do prefer like to, if you did like an internship abroad or some experience abroad, maybe if you wanted to, I know like from the KFZ when they are hiring group leaders, they do prefer to have someone with some abroad experience. But I think if you would just want to go to industry, that I don't think there is a very big bias.
Right. And also, like, I think it's important to note that, the US PhD is usually for the, it's catering for the undergrads of the US, right? So they come right after their bachelor. So it's a master's come PhD almost. So it's two things juxtaposed together. And most European PhDs, you apply directly to a lab and you have a project. I think this was discussed like extensively in the previous session. So, and I think everything that the other speakers mentioned about the lab and the work culture, those are things you'll know as you try and as you get to know much better. So let me see if there are any other questions. I don't see anything else, and we're also a bit past the time limit, but I'm going to hand it over to the hosts so they can carry forward.
One quick word. I mean, probably I might be speaking on behalf of a lot of the speakers. I think this is an amazing job by the organizers. I'm not sure like how long we tried to pull this off. I must say this is an amazing job. I've sat through the entire session. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. You all probably provided an opportunity to go back, see my seniors, my juniors, and like just interact with folks. I don't know when was the last time you've seen us each other. I think it's an amazing job. And one thing I wanted to say is that we thoroughly enjoy interacting with like people probably in their first, second, third, and fourth years, right? We would be open to, if anybody wants to reach out to us, we can provide our contacts, and we will be openly available to like interact. I think that way it will be more fruitful for us to like share our experiences, and I'm sure every speaker on the panel agrees with that. Thank you so much.
That's an amazing point. Yeah. Like, thank you so much for the organizers for putting this out. And also for me, it was a really nostalgic experience when all of you talked about your college life. It's just been like 2.5 years, but still I want to go back to NIT Warangal, however it was. But yeah, I think I'm going to hand it over the mic unless anyone else wants to add on something. Cool. Thank you for having me. I think Ashwin's next.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Deepshika, for hosting a nice session. And thanks a lot, all the speakers, for the very informative sessions. And especially all of you for encouraging us and, giving all this motivational, thoughts. I mean, I'm actually overwhelmed by the emotions as I'm not able to put up the words. But really, it was actually very good to, hear from our seniors and super seniors, like from the first batch, we have 3 people actually over here. All of them are doctors. And like, two of them are doctors and one of them is from another next batch, also a doctor. So it's really inspiring to see them. And all the people who are working in Illumina, Amgen, and also people working in startups in India and, all the different fields, be it finance and management, all of them. So, it all gives us so much pleasure that we could put all of it together. So that being said, I would like to take this moment to thank a few people before we continue the discussion, because I think we can still continue the discussion. Whoever wants, we can obviously officially close it, but this discussion can continue forever. But I would still like to thank a few people and a few plans following up what Mani already pointed out. So first of all, I would like to thank again the speakers. Secondly, one of the most important part of the organizing of this small event was the moderators. That includes Akash, Deepshika, Ayushi from the previous one, and also Krishna. So all 4 of them, we are very thankful for all of you to conduct it very smoothly and very professionally. I'm really happy about that. I'm very glad about that. A special thanks to all the people who could join. I know many people are popping up and down, but the main thing is what I would mention is that, at least from my experience in an ITW, what I can always say is that at least from discussion with the juniors, they're always informative discussion. Which is not only for them, it's also for me, like as a senior, I've always observed it. And I always like to say that I learn a lot more from my juniors than what I've sort of, guided them with. I always learn a lot more. And some of my immediate juniors, or all of them, are here, and actually they are the ones who sort of made the team also. Okay. To sum up a bit about the initiative that we took, the Bio Network, I would like to point out a few things where definitely our seniors will be very helpful for us. For example, we have something like, we already we have put up in the mails that we have social media channels on Facebook and Instagram. But to make it more professional, we also have one group on LinkedIn, and we plan to have such announcement of bigger events or important events where everyone can part on those kind of channels also, apart from Facebook and Instagram, because I myself am not that active on Facebook and Instagram, so I rather prefer LinkedIn over them. Apart from that, Twitter, we have not thought about it because Twitter is right now sort of quite science Twitter. I think all the scientists can relate to this, because Twitter is mostly of scientists right now, at least I believe that. That being said, we actually, more importantly, we have already launched the website for BioNetwork, which is bionetwork.org. I would put that in the, Simran, could you put it in the chat? That would be great. Put the link in the chat. With that, actually, that website has been developed by our juniors, who I will thank again tomorrow, because I have a whole list. I don't remember the list right now. But the main agenda of that website is not only to announce things, but also to share the resources. Just for example, I heard about the 3Ps from Rohit, how to select a lab, and also a very nice overview of the career choices, the 4 choices which Mani showed during his presentation. I actually really like that, how to sum up how you do it. And then how to make clear choices, whether you want to stay in academia or not, whether you want to do it in industry, how do you manage picking up CAT or GMAT or GATE. All these kind of points are very helpful for juniors. Exactly as Mani pointed out, that our juniors, the second and third and fourth years, they need a lot of guidance. And for that, we have a resources section where we would like to share all these things. The page is under the website is made, but those pages are under development. So we would most likely reach you out, and it will be really cool that if you guys could share some inputs on how to improve that content. So apart from that, the last thing I would like to mention is that we also have a YouTube channel, in which what we have done is that apparently one of the members of the YouTube, one of the interviewed person of the YouTube channel is Deepshika. So with that YouTube channel, what we do is we have this bath cheat kind of small episode kind of thing, in which what we do is we invite students, we invite our alumni, so that they can talk about their experience for, let's say, a specific thing. For example, Deepshika was invited for talking about the Qurana scholarship, because she is a no, she was awarded a Qurana scholarship back in 2018, right? 2017, sorry. Similarly, we also have other people who have been gotten Indian Academy of Science scholarship or GATE. So we can also have this kind of episode in season 1 and season 2. That's what we are planning, and we release these videos on the YouTube channel. Again, Simran could put the link in the chat box. So yeah, that's I would say pretty much it from my side. And yeah, this is some information we would be glad if you could follow up and help the community grow. And as the name suggests, connect, share, and grow.